Previously on After the Uprising.
Yes, I'm at 9640 Diamond Drive, and it's a car on fire in my parking lot. When the fire department pull up, they'll see the fire.
Seals was found shot inside a burning car in Riverview on Diamond Drive. Benjamin Granda is with the St. Louis County Police Department.
I do know that there is a lot of sentiment in the community that they want justice, they want the truth, and we hope to give that to them.
Darren wouldn't go nowhere with no random person that he don't know. I believe whoever it was close to him.
He said, no, there's nothing wrong with that, but you might want to pick your enemies better.
Now, can I ask you, if the person's facing charges on 6 murders, then what is the harm in throwing the name out there?
I mean, it was Perez Reed. That was our friend. They used to shoot dice a lot all the time.
What you're looking at is the aftermath of the grand jury deciding not to indict Officer.
29-year-old Darren Seals was murdered before his killer set his car on fire.
Once they put out the flames, they discovered Seals' body inside with a gunshot wound.
They pointed guns on me and my 14-year-old little brother, it's Ferguson PD. Grabbed me by my heart, slammed me out the car. He said you might want to pick your enemies better.
This is After the Uprising, Season 2, The Murder of Darren Seals.
Authorities in Missouri say they may have a serial killer in custody.
There is a serial killer walking among us.
A suspected serial killer charged with murders in the St. Louis area.
New charges against suspected serial killer Perez Reed.
The FBI has arrested a man suspected in multiple homicides in St. Louis City and County. Authorities say 25-year-old Perez Reed is now behind bars. Authorities say he is believed to be responsible for 6 murders and several shootings around St. Louis and Kansas City.
If it was Perez Reed, do you have any reason why he would have wanted to kill your brother?
That was our producer, John Duffy, asking DeAndre Joshua why he suspects that Perez Reed is the person who killed his twin brother, DeAndre. We are asking Dante about this because when his brother DeAndre was killed in 2014, he was shot in the back of the head, and the car he was in was set on fire. Because the method of execution was pretty much identical to the method used in the murder of Darren Seals, we thought it was worth comparing notes on the cases. We were surprised first that Dante had a name to give us regarding who he thought had killed his brother. And we were even more surprised when that name was Perez Reed, who was 25 years old when he was arrested in late 2021 on the suspicion that he'd committed 6 murders, with another murder added to that list the following year. Dante explained to us that he and his brother had been good friends with Perez.
Look, this is how he goes. Like, Perez, we knew him personally. We used to be with him every day. So, like, when he get attitudes, he used to turn into somebody you would not think he was when he got mad. Prior to that, he beat another one of our friends. He lost his money in a dice game, and he beat him with a skillet in his house, locked him in his house and beat him with a skillet once he lost. So I know the type of things he did, like how mad he can get. I done watched them gamble with each other, and to the point where they were gambling each other clothes off their back. I don't know when nobody would try to kill, but I do know that DeAndre had shot dice with him earlier that day, and everybody in the apartments lost their money to him. So there could have been a reason. And
did you always suspect him?
My cousin did, but I thought it was like our friends. So I'm like, he wouldn't do that. Then after he started getting accused for it, he started checking himself to his psych wards, tried to kill his cousin. So I was just putting the piece to the puzzle. And now that he killed that 16-year-old on Glen Orange, he killed DeAndre on Glen Orange.
The 16-year-old that Dante mentioned, who was killed in the same location as his brother DeAndre, was Marnay Haynes. She's referred to here in this news report.
The youngest victim, 16-year-old Marnay Haynes.
She was so bubbly every day. She would like to rap. She would like to listen to music all the time. Every single day, she would smile.
The day before he allegedly shot and killed Marnay Haynes, Perez allegedly shot a man who was waiting for a bus on Chambers Road in St. Louis County. That man survived but is now permanently disabled. 4 days after shooting the unnamed man at the bus stop, Perez allegedly shot an unnamed woman in the face on West Florissant Avenue in St. Louis. She was able to make it to a nearby gas station to ask for help, and she survived. Only 1 hour later and a half-mile away, at 11:45 p.m., Perez allegedly shot Pamela Abercrombie in the head. Police found her bleeding out in the street, and she died of her wound at the hospital.
A memorial for Pam Abercrombie on West Florissant shows the passage of time, weeks since the flowers went up here, at the same spot where she was shot on September 16th.
On September 19th, 3 days after the shooting of Pamela Abercrombie, the body of Carrie Ross was found in a vacant lot. Gunshots had been reported in the area the night before, but officers responding didn't find the victim at the time. The .40 caliber shells found at the scene matched those found at the scenes of the previous victims. 1 week later, Ferguson police found the body of Lester Robinson. He had been fatally shot in the head. After this spree, Perez seems to have quieted down for a month. At the end of October, he took an Amtrak train from St. Louis to Kansas City, Kansas. Based on communications police later found, Perez was going to Kansas City ostensibly to meet a woman named Radaja Denaya Farrow to buy drugs from her. She lived in a high-rise building, and it was in that building where Perez allegedly killed his 3 final victims. Radaja herself was one of them, along with neighbors Damon Washington Irvin and Stephen Johnson.
Are you going to let her know that we're here? Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you, sir. Hi, Miss Sherry.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. Are you Miss Sherry?
No, you looking for Sherry?
Miss Sherry, yes.
Mama.
To better understand who Perez was, we went to his aunt's house. She had been his legal guardian. My name is Maria, and this is Ray. And are you Miss Sherry? Hi, Miss Sherry. Hi. We are coming to your house unannounced, but we wanted to introduce ourselves. My name is Maria, and this is Ray. Okay. And Ray is doing some background information about Perez, and he wanted to ask you a couple of questions, if that's possible.
About who?
Perez.
Yeah, we don't have no comment.
Okay, so
thank you.
Everything that's in the paper, we just stick to what's in the paper?
Whatever they say.
Okay.
We didn't comment to that, so.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Are you able to tell us where he was living around 2014? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Anyone else we should try to talk to just
he
find
don't
out
have anybody else to talk to. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Sherry. Have a good day. Since his aunt was unwilling to speak with us, we went to Sam's Meat Market, a small business in Ferguson where we heard Perez previously worked. It was a long shot, but we figured it was worth checking into. Hello. Is the owner here? Are you the owner? Oh. Is there anybody who has worked here since 2013? So there's not a person who's been working here since 2013?
No, I don't think so. There is no other person.
The man working up front was unable to help us, so we went to the kitchen at the back of the building where a couple of men were cleaning up.
Can I ask, how long have you been working here? Yeah.
I've been here
Oh, 3 years?
almost.
Were you ever here when a guy named Perez Reed would come in? No. He was arrested late last year for like multiple murders, and they said he worked here at one point. He's doing a little podcast.
I do know who you talk about now. Yeah, he did used to do some cleaning around there.
Did he?
Take out trash and stuff.
It turns out one of the employees who was working did remember Perez.
But he always has that tattoo.
You remember him yourself.
Yeah.
So he just did like a side hustle, a side gig.
Yeah, he was just kind of come over here and take out the trash, sweep, move some boxes around, maybe probably clean the bathroom or something like that.
Yeah. Sorry, one more thing, just to then leave you alone. But if we wanted to try to get to know more about him and who he was and what he was all about, is there anybody we should try to talk to? Anyone he hung out with?
Yeah, I might talk to him.
Talk to who?
He outside.
As luck would have it, the employee told us that if we wanted to talk directly to Perez's cousin, Caden, we could, because he was standing right outside.
Yeah, we're just trying to better understand what happened there, really. We're just kind of trying to get to know people who knew him and try to figure out why he went off in 2021.
Well, he's schizophrenic.
Yeah. Only a psychiatrist knows how to deal with that psychological problem.
The second man you're hearing was standing outside the market with Caden. He told us he also knew Perez.
How would you describe it? He just had a temper, and sometimes he'd just become another guy?
Nah, he was paranoid a lot. He thought everybody was zapped up when people was looking at him, following him, all type of shit.
Yeah. He held it together for all those years, and then all of a sudden in 2021 he goes on that spree.
He's frantic. And I can tell you, only a psychiatrist can deal with that. Yeah. None of us can.
Then he'd come here mostly to hang out or mostly to work?
No, he was just sweeping the lot.
Who were some of his friends? Who else should we talk to?
He didn't really have many friends.
Caden said Perez didn't have many friends, but he did have a lawyer. So we called him to see if maybe we could arrange to speak with Perez himself.
I'm trying to reach David Bruns.
Yeah, this is David.
Hey, David. I'm a reporter and a podcaster, and I guess I wanted to get in touch to see if we might make a request of Perez for an interview.
Wait. Who is this?
My name's Ray Novoselsky. I do a podcast called After the Uprising, and there are elements that seem to connect with the story of Perez Reed. So I was just calling to see if I might request an interview with him if he were inclined. I know there are things he can't say, but there might be things he wants to say.
Right. No, it's that. No, I'm not going to give any comment on Perez Reed.
Are you still representing him?
I absolutely am.
Okay. Would he consider an interview, or could such a request be passed to him?
No.
Okay. Well, that's pretty clear. Thank you.
Okay.
Perez's attorney was not interested in commenting, and he was absolutely not willing to pass on our request for an interview with his client. As fate would have it, there were some people who knew Perez who were willing to talk about him, and I just happened to meet them in a rideshare.
Perez used to come to my mom's house all the time. Him and my brother was actually close friends. He was handsome. He was in school. He was doing everything that he was playing football with my brother and everything. He never gave off a serial killer type of vibe. Never. Like, when my mama seen the article, she was like, I know that's not Perez that used to be over here. Like, this man used to be in the house with us. What did he do? He was a serial killer. Nobody expected that to be the outcome. I honestly think Perez got a hold of some type of drug that messed up his mind, because I was always his little, my brother was always his big bro, so I'm not understanding. He was a cool dude. How old is he? About 27? Perez is about 27. After they got out of school, we didn't hear from Perez after that. I don't know what happened to him. I do believe he experienced something traumatic in his life which caused him to slip off his humanity.
He never had a stable home. That was part of it.
He never had a stable home.
More after the break.
Now, back to the show.
And so what have you since learned took place?
It's not much they've told me as far as what the police have said. I'm a true crime type of guy, so I'm heavy into podcasts. So I just kind of put my mind into that place, almost become my own little detective, and then you find out about all the murders that go on in St. Louis, and then you find out all what happened right across the water the next day, I believe it was. He had killed another guy in Kansas City, Missouri, and did him the exact same way that he did my brother. Back of the head, stuffed in a closet, mattress over him. So it's so this is your MO. This is what you do.
I'm speaking with Delano Hill. His brother, Damon Irvin, was killed, allegedly, by Perez Reed on October 28th, 2021.
I'm sorry for your loss, and I appreciate you talking with us.
No problem, man.
Maybe we could just start with, can you tell us a little about Damon?
There's only two of us, me and him, so I hate to come with the same old cliche, very smart, so on and so forth. But I mean, he was like honor society. I think it was something like that. Classical artist as far as piano. He played Beethoven, Chopin. I think he said one of the guys' name was like. And he went off to KU for a couple years. He had went back home and got his associates at KCK, but he went back to KU. That's where he was studying when he passed. I mean, not saying he's choir boy, because like I said, he later in life he was into different things, but never really a street element. He never was a street guy.
I asked Delano how he first heard that his brother had been killed.
My mother, she had called me on Friday, that she hadn't heard from him, and asked if I would reach out to him. So I called and called and called. At first it was ringing, then it started going straight to voicemail. Friday evening she called, she was like, hey, we're going to go up there. Saturday they went up there, the police wouldn't let them in. They said they had to wait until Monday morning. When my mother called, she was already crying. Yeah, so I woke up Monday morning planning on celebrating my son's birthday. It was his second birthday. And they called and told me that my brother, they found somebody in his apartment. And I knew my brother wasn't a killer, so I already knew it was him.
How long after that did you learn they'd arrested Reed?
It was a surprise. So whenever it was published on the news is when I found out about that guy.
I wanted to know if Delano had any inkling as to how his brother came into contact with Perez.
The police are very hesitant to give us information. They said the guy and the young lady that passed the next day, they had over like 600 communications, but they never said that him and my brother had any communication. But knowing my brother was a very inviting person. I can't say what was behind it. I don't know if it was possible drugs, if it was possible just, hey, want to get to know you. My brother was a part of the LGBTQIA plus. I believe that's how you say it. I don't want to disrespect the group by any means. So I don't know what the play was. On Wednesday night, he called me and was like, brother, I need you to save me. And he had been doing it for a few weeks now, but he had just felt something bad was coming. I'm big on being a man, or what my ideal of a man is. And I'm yelling this to him like, dang it, you gotta, and it's not like I'm yelling down at him, I'm yelling him, picking him up. Gotta be a man. You can't call me crying and so on and so forth. And later on that night, he called me and we kind of had like a calming down period. But he's like, man, but I still want to come down there with you. The detectives told me Thursday morning.
You think it was a premonition, or do you think you literally knew he was in trouble?
Premonition.
We need to understand that I'm just going on what I remember, because I don't have any facts or anything or numbers that I have written down over the years.
This is Paul Jones, a former teacher who then spent the bulk of his career as a detention supervisor at the Juvenile Detention Center in St. Louis County. He also happened to be my neighbor and my friend. You worked at the St. Louis County Juvenile Justice Center, correct?
Yes, St. Louis County Juvenile Detention Center.
And how many years did you work there?
From 1981, I believe, either 80 or 81, to 2020. I worked with BC3 children my first 20 years there. BC3 kids are considered ringleaders on the street. They call the shots, and other kids would practically do anything to be accepted by this person.
In his time working at the Juvenile Detention Center, Mr. Jones saw a lot that disturbed him, including that the police would try to groom children to become informants.
Well, that happens all the time. If they can get the kid to talk and tell them who's on the street doing this and doing that, they will pick the child up and say something dumb to him in front of his friends. Like, hey, didn't you give me some information on so-and-so, so-and-so in front of the friends? And now all the friends are looking at it. Damn, man, you snitching on us? Oh, man, we done with you.
And it would also make him a target on the streets.
Yes, he would be. Because if he done told on the wrong person, he can come up missing.
Mr. Jones has a great memory regarding the specific kids who came through the juvenile detention center, including Perez Reed. Which group was Perez Reed part of?
If my memory is correct, I want to say he was not in the BC3. He was with a group of guys that could read or write, that knew how to manipulate the system. He knew what buttons to push. He knew how to get other people to do his bidding for him. His particular group, we used to call them white collar crime. White collar is where he or she can get someone that's a little slow or whatever and go and do all their little handiwork for them.
Where this gets personal for me is that a young man who had been held in the juvenile detention center as a child, Jalen Jefferson, many years later shot and killed my own cousin. Her name was Isis Marr, and she was only 19 years old when she was murdered in 2021. 2 years before that, Jalen killed a boy named Curtis Marshall. And before that, back in 2013, according to Mr. Jones, Jalen also happened to have killed someone close to Perez Reed, allegedly his brother. Astonishingly and tragically, Jalen would have been only 9 years old when he committed his first alleged act of violence. As he was a minor, his criminal record from that time is sealed, but he was sent into the juvenile detention center under Mr. Jones's watch. You said that there was an incident between Jalen and Perez at some point in the detention center.
As long as I was there, I would always say there were certain kids could never have the roam of the building. And Mr. Perez was one of those guys, because I knew for a fact that if he ever got the opportunity, he was going to physically assault Mr. Jefferson. Like I said, Perez was in Unity white collar crime, so he knew how to play the game. And so this particular evening, I was not working, and one of the social workers picked him to distribute snacks for the evening. And once he was passing out the snacks and he was going to the different units to pass it out, once he got to Unit A and he saw Mr. Jefferson tried to avoid him, but he put the snacks down and ran straight to Mr. Jefferson and assaulted him. And Jefferson, without a gun, was not a fighter. He could not really defend himself.
And Jalen was in that time, so the time that he got attacked, he was in for the murder of Perez's brother. That's what he was.
Yes.
So Jalen ends up inside. Perez gets inside for...
I don't know what brought him in the building. I don't remember what brought him in the building. But Jalen was in the building first.
You talked about how he gamed the system to specifically get himself closer to Jalen so he could attack him. That makes me wonder if he got into juvie in the first place because his brother had been killed and he wanted to get in so that he could get to the guy.
As crazy as it sounds, there's some truth to that.
Could be possible.
Yeah, quite possible. Because, like I said, over the years, sitting back and just observing and listening to some of the stories, some of the kids didn't do things purposely so that they could get back into the juvenile system. He didn't receive an additional charge for the assault because there's always fights within the building. And he got out maybe a week or two after. So he really, I would say he planned all this.
You mostly recall him because of that incident?
Yes.
Gotcha. So do you know how long he maybe had been in before that?
No. And I know he had been through the building.
Would it surprise you to know that Perez committed arson on his own family's home?
No.
It wouldn't surprise you?
No. I've seen a lot of those.
Darren Seals was killed in the early morning hours of September 6, 2016. Almost exactly 1 month before, on August 2nd, Perez Reed tried to set a house on fire while several people were still inside. Those people were all Perez's family members.
A suspected serial killer charged with murders in the St. Louis area was accused of arson 5 years ago. But despite facing prosecution, the case against Perez Reed was dropped.
All signs of a fire that happened here 5 years ago are gone. The siding is new, so is the garage door. It was a different story in August of 2016 when Ferguson police say Perez Reed set this attached garage on fire, even though 4 members of his family were inside the home. A police report says Reed's father, aunt, cousin, and grandmother were huddled together and visibly shaking when officers arrived, and that they were willing to prosecute the 20-year-old.
Fortunately, everyone inside the home was okay, and only the garage seems to have suffered major damage. At the time, Bob McCullough was the prosecuting attorney for St. Louis County, and he charged Perez Reed with first-degree arson, which is a felony punishable by anywhere from 5 to 15 years in prison. But in 2019, those charges were dropped for failure to prosecute. The prosecuting attorney overseeing the case by that time was Wesley Bell. This is what Mr. Bell said at a press conference regarding that failure to prosecute.
From my knowledge, that was witnesses who were not willing to testify, family members who were not willing to cooperate is not surprising.
He has been fortunate enough that somebody always have done his paperwork wrong, that he always wind up back out on the street to do more damage.
Perez was out on the streets again after his assault on Jalen Jefferson, in time to possibly have killed DeAndre Joshua in 2014. 2 years later, after setting fire to his grandmother's property, he was let out on a failure to prosecute. Jalen was also released, which is how he was able to kill Curtis Marshall, a crime for which there was also a failure to prosecute, which left him free to kill Maria's cousin Isis. As the primary witness in her case was also murdered, Jalen and his co-defendant have again been released onto the streets of St. Louis. We asked Mr. Jones what he thought needed to be reformed to make it so that fewer children ended up like Jalen Jefferson or Perez Reed.
Well, to be truthful, for the first question, what would I like to see? The same thing that deterred me from going to juvenile, because there's a lot of single women trying to raise little boys. And once a little boy gets strong enough, he is not listening to mom, grandma, aunt, great aunt. Little boy always need a male somewhere in his life. It just to keep him in line. Without the male influence in his life. And I would always tell the kids in the building, this is why white America is building all these prisons. They are afraid of you. And since you out here acting like an animal, most animals they put down or they put them in a cage. And that's where you guys are headed.
In July of 2023, Mr. Paul Jones passed away. He was my friend. He was my confidant. He was a lovely, God-fearing man, and I will miss him. More after the break.
Now, back to the show.
I understand that DeAndre Joshua was not an activist in the same sense and was not in the same category as Darren Seals. We took a shot. We gave a call to his family members and some people in his orbit. And do you know about this guy, Perez Reed, that was arrested last year?
I heard about him. Yeah. I heard about him, yeah.
I'm talking to Tef Poe. If you listen to season 1 of our show, you'll remember that he's a native of St. Louis, a rapper and an activist. As someone who knew Darren Seals personally, we thought it was important to get Tef's perspective on his killing and to share with him the question of whether or not it made any sense to try to connect Perez Reed to Darren's death.
So we thought this was a good trail. We look at his further record. 2016, he tries to light a house on fire right near the Canfield Apartments. So when Wesley Bell comes in, he tries to prosecute him in 2019. Wesley Bell has a failure to prosecute that sees the guy get out on that charge in 2019. And I'm wondering why this guy is so untouchable.
I'm gonna tell you why, man. Because he, from what I hear, from what you're describing, the motherfucker's a shooter. The motherfucker's a killer.
So just no one's going to talk about him.
Man, they don't want to deal with the wrath. If he's like that, then and he comes from a small gang, then those small gangs are usually the most violent ones. Those small gangs, everybody in a small gang is pretty much a shooter. It sounds like to me he's just from a shooter gang and people don't want to deal with it.
From juvie on, he was starting fires, arson, and they had thought that he was a sociopath at that time. In 2014, he's living adjacent to the Canfield Apartments and he's playing dice game on the regular with DeAndre Joshua. On the day of the non-indictment, late that night or early the next morning is, of course, when DeAndre was shot through the window of his car and it was attempted to be lit on fire, but unsuccessfully, right off the Canfield Apartments. He had just taken a ton of money from Perez on a dice game. So DeAndre gets shot through a car, attempted to light on fire. Darren's found in a car lit on fire. We had this whole theory that maybe this is all essentially this Perez Reed.
Yeah. I mean, shit, you never fucking know, but I don't really think so.
Teff wasn't really buying the potential Perez Reed connection to Darren's murder, which was fair enough.
The general opinion about what happened to Seals is that he crossed, and this is where shit gets really confusing because the activist community believes one thing and then the streets believe another, and honestly, the streets pretty much absolved the fucking murder. But nobody really listens to those voices because they're like, well, where's your evidence? The evidence is pretty much for us is in the admittance from it of the people who are in the community, kind of soft finessing that they know what happened and this is how it happened. But
and that story is what?
Basically, man, I mean, he was in the streets before, man. He was dealing with this dude named Jay Bird. Bird is locked up. Seals is supposed to be taking care of some shit for his family. It didn't go as it was supposed to go. About 2 weeks before he died, he kind of started shifting and hanging out with some cats that none of us really trusted. And they lined him up, man. That's pretty much it. And then, the dude, one of the guys that was responsible for the lineup, I think 2020, he was gunned down in his front yard of his mother's home, pretty much as retaliation for the situation with Seals.
Are you able to give that name since the guy's gone already?
I used to know it, but I fucking forgot it. It's a rapper, man. He's in videos with him and everything. And then even, honestly, if you know Seals, you kind of know it wasn't no fucking conspiracy. I just knew that dude well enough to know when they told me the story, how it spelled out. I didn't get a hint of foul play in that, personally. I knew him to be a person who would drop his girl off at the crib, say, I'm going to fuck with some movement people. Your girl don't know what that means, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're a fucking popping internet activist at this point, known in the streets, known in the community. Hey, all right, shit, you've been out 3 o'clock in the morning dealing with other shit this whole time, so maybe that's valid. He fucking dropped her off, which I've seen him do this countless times, because I've been wondering when he did shit like this. And his main problem was he liked the ladies, man, so he pulled up on a girl. The girl was in on the shit. They set his ass up. Put like this. We used to have this thing called principles and values. So, where we'll be like, we'll spell it out, for each other. So it's like, if I get caught doing this, yeah, it's a chance I did that. If I get caught doing this, damn well I'm not even into that. So it spells out his shit that he was into. It doesn't, for his actual associates and friends, it's not man, what the fuck was he doing over there? How did that, man, the dude got shot up before he was even in the movement.
Teff seems to have bits and pieces of a story. A guy named Jay Bird who was in jail. Strange new people in Darren's life that Teff didn't trust. A nameless rapper gunned down in his mother's yard. And a woman who was maybe used as bait. Were all of these elements actually at play in Darren's death? Or any of them? I asked Teff if he knew specifically how Darren was lured to the location where he was killed.
I never heard that part of the logic of how they got him out the house. It was music-related people who killed him. I know that.
If Teff was convinced it was people in the rap game that had killed Darren, we were curious what the motive would have been.
Seals was a good dude, but at the same time, he was quick to make enemies, man. You know what I'm saying? even the first day I met the dude, he was like going in my throat. And everybody was like, yo, dude, we don't even know how Poe gonna respond to this shit. Introduce yourself to the dude first, you know what I'm saying? I chopped it up with him. It wasn't that big of a deal, but at the same time, there's other people who aren't gonna meet that energy head on out of fear, out of whatever anxieties they may have. I just feel like in his personal entanglements, we just don't know the depths of those, you know what I'm saying? But I know he was in the streets, and he wasn't fake in the streets, you know what I'm saying? The motherfucker's nickname was D-Boy, Dope Boy. I mean, come on, man. He was a fucking drug dealer. That shit don't leave you just because you went outside and started, you know, critiquing Black Lives Matter and CNN. You know, you still got a life that has a tab on it from your past endeavors, you know what I'm saying?
As well connected as Tef Poe is to the various communities and subcultures involved, it's hard not to take his opinion seriously. Despite the similarities in how both DeAndre Joshua and Darren Seals died, it doesn't necessarily mean the two killings are connected. And for what it's worth, we don't actually know for certain who killed DeAndre. Even though his brother Dante believes Perez Reed was responsible, at this point, that is only speculation. For his part, Tef Poe believes that someone, or a group of someones, that Darren was connected to in the world of music were the people behind his murder. And he believes it's possible that one of them has already been killed as an act of retribution, though he says he doesn't remember specific names. So who are these people? Who could they be? That's next time on After the Uprising.
After the Uprising is a production of Double Asterisk and iHeart Podcasts in association with True Stories. Season 2 was written, reported, and produced by Maria Chappelle Nadal, John Duffy, Mallory Kenoy, and Ray Novoselsky. Executive producers are Nikki Ator and Lindsay Hoffman for iHeart Podcasts, John Duffy and Ray Novoselsky for Double Asterisk, David Cassidy and Ruth Vaca for True Stories. Directed by John Duffy and Ray Novoselsky. Theme song and score by Zachary Walter. Sound engineering and mix by John Autry. Fact-checking by Muffin Humes. Marketing by Allison Cantor. Fair Use Legal by Peter Yazzie and Brandon Butler. Legal by Holly DeCan for iHeart Podcasts and Keith Sklar for Double Asterisk. Missouri Sunshine Legal by David Rowland. Show logo by iHeart Podcasts, using a photo by Attilio D'Agostino. Our interns were Hannah Madura and Rosemary Feary. Website by Stephanie Clark. Recorded at David Weber's Airtime Studios in Bloomington, Indiana. We want to acknowledge additional investigation that became part of this podcast was conducted by Detective Adams in the St. Louis County Police and the FBI, who did not participate in this podcast, and by Amir Brandy, Mosi Secret, and Darnell Singleton. If you like our work, check out our other podcasts. You can find us at doubleasteriskmedia.com and on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Support us on Patreon. If you're enjoying the show, leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. Thank you to Jamie Dennis, Danny Gonzalez, Jonathan Hartwig, Beth Ann Macaluso, Matt McDonough, Melissa McKinnis, Ryan Mears, Tony and Val Novoselsky, and the family and loved ones of Darren Seals. Bottom Boys and DOA tracks used via fair use. So was the news reporting archival. Copyright 2024 Double Asterisk Inc.